Hello everyone, I'm your host Thomas28 and welcome back to Clayblock. So, as we left off last episode, it's been like a week since I last recorded, and in that time I've made a ton of progress with the base. Let's see if we can get like an overhead view by climbing over here, so I can show you what I've been working on. Mostly because HV has been kind of a slog. Really wasn't too much that was like really interesting puzzle-wise. It was really just going through the motions, but I've gotten the base to a point where I'm really happy with it. Things are running fast, things are running smoothly, and it's working out really well. Something I think I really like about modern industrialization is how any problem is solved just by producing more of something, which is really fun. As you can see by the... Oh, I'm gonna have to turn down the machines. I probably should have crafted that device that lets you mute machines, but at this point it'll be too late. As you can see, we have lines upon lines of electric quarries producing clay. We have this one over here making our nether cotta stuff, so we can make nether cotta. We have some more clay production over here, a couple more curium drills, followed by one energized stainless steel. So this is producing pretty much every single ore we need. I have this big ol' diesel generator, the large one, capable of producing 16,000 EU per tick, powering this section of the base. In fact, it's actually pretty overkill. I didn't need it. Well, I needed it at first to run these giant machines, these processing arrays, because this one is turning all of the 3x compressed clay into 4x. This one converts all the 4x to 5x. This one converts all the 5x to 6x. And then all of these packers are converting clay into the more compressed form. I've been running it for a couple days now, and we're barely at 2 pieces of 17x compressed clay, so it'll probably take another week before I actually get up to this 20x, which is still pretty slow. It's possible I could make it faster, I'm just not sure if the rest of the factory could really keep up. Now, I did finally manage to work our way up to the implosion compressors, which are phenomenal. These are so fast. If you take a look at the recipe here, if you're using the terracotta recipes, it takes half a second to process. It's insanely fast. And then for the other stuff, like this one is doing the... Where is it? There we go. Primed callium. It only takes 2 seconds. So these guys are really fast. They're so fast, in fact, that my issue was actually filling them with enough industrial TNT. But of course, that problem was solved by just increasing production, because TNT is made from flint and sand, which are both pretty easy. But then the toluene and nitrogen was actually pretty difficult. Mostly because nitrogen comes from this guy right here, this massive vacuum freezer that produces, what is this? Liquid air. And the liquid air gets processed into oxygen, argon, and nitrogen. But the toluene was actually really annoying because it comes from this giant distillery over here. This guy takes in steam-cracked naphtha and distills it down into... how much stuff, actually? Into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different byproducts. And I gotta say, actually planning out everything was really annoying, but now it kinda works. As you can see, every single pipe goes somewhere. And the only kind of bottleneck I had includes all these automatic trash cans, wherein if I overproduce one of these things, I just start venting it. I don't really need it because I need it to keep running. But it just works, which is really cool. And then when it got slow after a while, because I need more toluen, I just threw in more upgrades. Now this guy can run at a max of 2176 EU per tick, which is insane. I believe the total recipe price is like 16,000 for this. Distillation, yeah, it's 24,000 EU. So with this many upgrades, it finishes about every second or so, which is really fast. But even at this speed, I still don't produce nearly enough toluene when I have a ton of production going on. And you just add more and more machines, mixers, diesel generators. This is my line of, what's the word? Oil processing. These guys all produce crude oil. This one on the right here produces shale. Because of the ratio, I wasn't sure if I would need more shale processing, mostly because shale oil has to get processed in its own distillation tower, which comes out as helium, what is this? Sulfuric crude and sulfuric naphtha, and then those get broken down again over here with this distillery station over here. But once you get to oil processing, things really pick up energy-wise. Mostly because you can convert... what I did was I started using not sulfuric. I was using light fuel to power everything, and if we take a look at light fuel, produces 160 EU per millibucket, making it extremely efficient. But then you can mix this with heavy fuel to make diesel, and diesel is nearly, I think, like 2.5 times more efficient. So you get 400 EU per millibucket, but then you can take this a step further and combine that with stained nether cotta to produce infused diesel, and infused diesel goes up to 4,000. And that's what I was doing for a while, but then I found you can get even more efficient, and that's what this setup over here is. You can make infused boosted diesel from boosted diesel. Boosted diesel takes regular diesel, combines it with diethyl ether to make the boosted, and infused boosted ethyl produces a whopping 8,000 EU per millibucket. And because it's so efficient, we can run nearly the entire factory just off of this single chemical reactor. I've never had any issues. And I think it's mostly because diesel generators are very efficient. They only produce as much power as the system actually needs, so it never goes to waste. So we're actually producing gallons upon gallons of infused boosted diesel, and every time I need to add more machines, it's as easy as just slapping down more HV diesel generators and just adding another power line, which is really good. And because they're all in HV, it's letting me push even higher voltage, It's letting me push even higher voltages for these machines, which is letting me really scale up the factory. I found it funny, one of the earliest bottlenecks I had when I added all these steam quarries was I needed to be able to produce even more caladium drills, which is why I set up a lone one on this side over here. Should be on this corner. Yep, over here. This guy, he overclocks up to 544, so he can go very fast. And it's because to actually keep up with the demand, I needed to produce more primed caladium drills at faster speeds. And because I had all the drill setup was all the way over here, it just wasn't fast enough. But then I eventually just upgraded this to HV, and after upgrading everything over here to HV, I just started slapping in more upgrades to make this go faster. That way we could keep up with production. So now, as you can see here, this machine used to run like perfectly, but now I have it overclocked like 20 times actually, to produce analog circuits that get fed into the rest of the factory because this was a big bottleneck, and it just kind of works. And now that we're producing terracotta, I have this kind of bootleg system for breaking down compressed terracotta. It does get stuck pretty often, but it works pretty well, as I just need terracotta to break down into red terracotta to make our redstone. Funny enough, I noticed that when you make redstone in the chemical reactor, it's actually better just to use this method because of how cheap the production of terracotta and red dye is. You can use the implosion compressor for a better yield, but because it's so expensive on the industrial TNT, it's really not worth it. It's a lot better just to keep using this method, especially because terracotta can be mined in such huge amounts. Anyways though, I think this is really the end of the factory. There is some more stuff you can do, as the next level of energy generation comes from the nuclear reactor, as you can see over here. But this guy, you don't have to make it this big. But this guy is really expensive to craft, as he requires the highly advanced stuff, which is the next tier above, and it's just really expensive. And at this point, the main benefit, which, as you can see here, it can produce hundreds of times more EU per tick than diesel. And while that's true, the juice just ain't worth the squeeze. You know what I mean? Because I'm already producing stuff pretty fast, and I can make these go faster. As you can see, these quarries are running at the regular overclock, which is 128, but these ones over here are actually running at 10 times that. So you can see it's running literally ticks at a time. That's how fast it's going. To get this all the way to tick speed, you do have to overclock it to, let me take a look here. You have to overclock it to 1800 EU, and right now they're at 1120, so that's half of it, so it's producing every 2 ticks, which is still pretty good. Going up to 1 tick would make it faster, but for how much upgrades I have to spend, it's not really worth it, especially for how expensive the drills would cost. It's pretty fine at 2 tick. Once you get down to the sub-second range, any further increases really don't matter too much. But at this point, it's really just about waiting. You can make it go faster, but the level of, production, I'm going to have to increase our, let me word that better. The level of scale I would have to increase the factory by to actually support even more electric quarries to speed this up would just take a lot of time for not much benefit. Because when you think about it, right, if you have one quarry producing clay at a 2-tick speed, and you add a second quarry, you've doubled your output. You're not producing twice as much. But when you add the third quarry, you didn't double it again. You've only increased your output by 50%. And then if you add the fourth one, it's 33, and then 25, and then like 16 and a half, and so on and so forth. Each additional quarry provides less overall gain. Sure, you are producing more clay, but each additional quarry just becomes less efficient. So I think at this point, the factory is self-sufficient, is self-sustaining, so I can kind of just let it run forever, and eventually we will get up to 20x. Now there was a shortcut that Bobby Lev mentioned using helium plasma. You can put helium plasma in a vacuum freezer to produce 12x compressed clay, which is a shortcut because the maximum we can get from a drill is 10x. But to actually produce helium plasma, we need a fusion reactor and this kind of material, which is quite impossible for how much work you have to do. Like, to get up to a fusion chamber, you need superconductors, plasma handling, iridium machine casing, nuclear alloy large plate. That's a whole level of infrastructure that it's just not really worth it, because, well, it's not really worth it to me at this point, because I like where the factory's at, and mostly because I was taking a look at the nuclear reactor, and it's actually really, really difficult to figure out what's going on there. It's really complicated. Like, when you take a look at something like let me pull up a fuel rod here. Like, what does this mean? Why do I need a PhD in nuclear chemistry to understand how this works? I'm sure it's actually not that difficult, but it just looks really difficult, and it puts me off. Which is why I don't want to do it, especially because of how efficient our diesel is. And it's like, sure, the nuclear reactor produces 100 times more energy, but then to use all that energy, I essentially have to double the size of the base, throw in even more upgrades, and I don't know if it'd really be worth it, especially because I'm not really producing anything related to nuclear fuel yet. Well, I am, I'm just not really processing it. Most of the nuclear stuff, if we type in, what is it called? Uranium. I believe we are getting a little bit of uranium from some other things. Like, oh, okay, you do get a little bit from the crystallignified clay. I forgot he added this. I wonder how worth this is. It's more input, which is not bad. And it's not really that expensive. This is a new crafting recipe, which is why I didn't add it. Essentially, you can take your otherworldly crystals, combine it with crystallignified clay to make crystallignified otherworldly crystal, and then you can convert that into the dust in the electric quarry, which is really nice because this is an easy way to get a lot of tin, and it's really not that expensive to set up because otherworldly crystal is already a byproduct from the curium drills. So it's pretty nice. It's a good way of taking your curium drills and just making more ores, which is pretty cool. But other than that, it's like I'd be spending a lot more time just to kind of get to the 20x a little bit faster. You know what I mean? I feel like by the time I would get up to the fusion reactor, I probably would have already gotten the 20x compressed clay already crafted. There was also one other thing. Where is it? Oh, over here. There's no way to convert bluff rod and blaze powder into blaze rods in modern industrialization, so I had to use the RF Tools crafter to do it, which I'm not sure is an oversight, because if you take a look at blaze rods, that's literally the only way you can get them, and obviously you can get blaze powder and bluff rods fully automatic. It's just a little weird. You can't make blaze rods in modern industrialization. You would think there was like some way to combine them, but there's no assembler recipe, which is why you have to use a crafter. But other than that, there's really not much else left to do. So at this point, it really is, just the waiting game. I've set up the factory to be fully self-sustaining. Every resource I need can now be automatically produced at great efficiency, and there's really not much left for me. Well, there's a lot to do, just not much left that interests me, because it's mostly just really tedious. Going up after HV just takes way too much effort. And I guess that's kind of my own problem. It's kind of like when I play Factorio. Once I get to the point where I can use drones to build stuff, that's usually when I stop playing. Because once I reach that point, I'm like, well, now I'm not really playing the game anymore. I'm just putting down blueprints. and having the drones build everything just so I can have a slightly higher science production per hour. But at this point, I'm pretty happy with where the base has happened. That. But at this point, I'm pretty happy with where I got the base. I like modern industrialization quite a lot. It's a really fun mod. From what I've seen compared to GregTech, this is a lot easier, so I'm not sure if I'll ever try GregTech, at least in the near future, kind of because it kind of scares me anytime someone talks about it and they're like, yeah, you'll be in the Steam Age for like 2 weeks. And I'm like, that grind sounds crazy. And it's by design. I don't know, it just kind of scares me. I don't know how you can play something for literally months just to slowly make progress like that. But that's just how it was designed, which is why it kind of scares me. Now, of course, there are ways I could have made the machines even faster. Like, for example, I have this large electric furnace just for copper, because copper was such a bottleneck. But you could change everything that uses an electric furnace to a large one, anything that uses a macerator to a big macerator, upgrade all the machines to processing arrays, which is why you would need the power of a nuclear reactor. But for me, I'm pretty satisfied with where the base is currently at, so I think I'll leave it off there. So I did put together a script for the final review for Clayblock. Something I was thinking about doing for all the mod packs is kind of doing a capstone episode where I just give my final thoughts on the pack, because usually what I've been doing is just having the final episode do a kind of stream of consciousness on what I thought about the pack, and I didn't think that was really great, because if you're someone that wants to, if you're looking for a mod pack to play, you shouldn't have to sit through someone's entire series to see if you want to know if it's good or not. Most people probably only look at like the first episode and then maybe follow along. So I was thinking by doing a capstone kind of review episode, people could see that and go, oh, let me see what this guy says about the mod. Since he played it through the whole thing already, let's hear his thoughts, and then maybe I'll like it based on what he says. So that was kind of what I was thinking. So even though we're not going to see the perfect 20x compressed clay in this episode, I'm pretty satisfied with my progress, mostly because, hey, I know it's going to get there in like a few hours. I just don't really feel like waiting around to like get it there. And at least for me, I've never been satisfied with doing like the extra, what's it called? If I look up suit, no, it's not suit, armor. There we go. These kind of mod packs always add, you know, like the final endgame gear that like lets you become God. But I've never really been interested in crafting that kind of stuff, mostly because it doesn't do anything. You know what I mean? Like, when on head, armor is equal to quarter as the limit approaches infinity armor. Like, there's no combat in the pack, so what's the point of having ultimate armor that lets you fly around? Mostly because this mod already has a jetpack, and I didn't really need it. Even for placing these kind of big pipes up here, it wasn't really that difficult to just stand on other pipes and use that as my scaffolding. I do love the spaghetti. That's probably my favorite part of modern industrialization, is the level of spaghetti you can input into the factory, and it doesn't really cause problems. If you've ever played Factorio, you know spaghetti can really be an issue, because if you need some kind of input to go from one place to another, if there's a ton of stuff in the way, it can be really difficult to actually move it. But because everything can move through pipes, and the throughput is really high, you can have just tons of pipes everywhere and it doesn't cause a problem. Like, after I set up the oil distillation, I was like, oh, I need to move a lot of this stuff elsewhere. Luckily, I could just have the pipes flying in the air, and that's not really an issue, which was really fun. But at this point, I think it's time to say goodbye to the factory. This has been a very fun couple of weeks. I really appreciate Bobby Lev and the work he put into the pack, and taking in constructive criticism from people playing the pack to let him improve it. You know, when I started playing it, some stuff was really tedious, but he took some of the criticism people said and decided to improve it, because some stuff that was really tedious didn't have to be tedious. Like, it didn't add anything. Like, having to spend a lot of time getting villagers from the Nether back to the overworld wasn't fun. It didn't add anything to the pack. So he added bucketed villagers. There you go. Now if you want villagers, bucket them over. It's so much easier. The tedium already exists by the fact that you can't breed them and you can't trade cycle. Why do you have to make it even more tedious on top of that? Along with adding, you know, the MV crafts, so you can actually fully automate redstone and stuff like that. Making clay-derived products more efficient, so you can actually build the factory out a lot faster, was really nice. Because I guess if if the mod pack did not change from when I started playing it to right now, I don't think I would have finished the pack. Because getting stuff like tin and redstone was absolutely horrendous past the early game because you need so much of it and you couldn't automate it. But where the pack currently is, he fixed that and it really made it a lot better. Maybe one gripe, you probably shouldn't have to build some kind of RF tools machine to actually process primed claim into tin. Maybe there should be an MV way to convert primed claim into tin, but I think actually the MV way, but I think it's actually not too bad, mostly because he added the extra craft for tin dust from crystamigrified otherworldly crystal, which does give you a way to make tin. Sure, it's on high amounts, but since you do need a curium drill anyway, it's a way to get lots of tin without having to go through that whole setup. It could be less annoying if you could get tin directly, but it's not that big of a deal if you have a little bit of creative intuition on how you can figure out how to turn primed clay into tin, mostly because once you have a ton of clay quarries, it's really easy to produce primed clayum. But at this point, this video has gone on quite long enough. Be on the lookout for the next video, probably going to be the day after this one, where I put out the final capstone review. But as always, I'm your host, Hummus28, and I'll see you guys next time.